Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah.
You're listening to Sunny Side Up with Adam and Kim on CJLO 1690 AM.
And then he's spinning its radals just like your life.
We have James Lavoie, who
worked on the costumes for A Christmas Carol that we
Right.
spoke about earlier. That's playing at the DB Clark. Good morning. Thanks for coming on our show.
Yeah, no problem.
So what do you think with the way A Christmas Carol turned out this year?
I think we're well, all of us are really happy about it. I think in some ways we kind of did a little bit of a different take on Christmas Carol than some people might expect, and I think in the end it ended up working out really well.
What was the biggest change that you made with this production?
Well, I don't know if we changed anything. I just think that we maybe went more back to the source of Dickens' novel and kind of thought more about what he was thinking in writing the novel and what sort of like mood he wanted to invoke. So it's not so much a change as much as just going back to the source, because I think over the 150 years since it's been written, it's sort of taking on a life of its own. So people have certain things that they expect from Christmas Carol, and it's a little bit more of a happier Hallmark Christmas version of it. And we've kind of tried to, again, just go back to the novel.
Cool. And so with a play like this one, where portraying the era's dress is so important, staying true to the period, how much room is there for exploring new design possibilities with regards to the costume?
Well, I always say that, sense of period or historically accurate clothing is mainly really important to people who study, costume history. So, maybe 0.01% of your audiences. So what's really, really important for me as a designer is to create a sense of history so that people feel like it's historical, but to actually do, it's more important to invoke certain moods with the clothing. So what I do is very, very much based and rooted in history, but I wouldn't say that it's, obsessively museum quality.
You know what was weird? I saw the Ghost of Christmas Present. He lifted up his arms and he kind of flashed the audience in a very odd way. And then there were two children stuck under his armpits.
No, not under his armpits.
Well, they were kind of on his side.
But the thing is that Adam didn't notice those images of the children, which are supposed to represent ignorance and want. And so he didn't realize what was going on until after. I was like, that was so cool when, he lifted it up and those children appeared. I thought that was...
I was like, did he just flash? Scrooge?
It's not that kind of show.
This is a different production.
Yeah.
No, but it was very, very well done. And the actors played double roles, so they had to go from crazy stage makeup to very kind of played down makeup because they were playing as regular people in the street.
Yeah, I think most of the actors were playing, sort of between 3 and 5 roles each.
Yeah.
And, often switching back and forth several times because the characters would return at different points in the story.
I mean, one of them had, the Ghost of Christmas Past had completely, her face was silver.
Yeah.
So did you have to decide, how much time do we have in the script to change her from the
Yeah,
silver?
absolutely. That was something that we spent a lot of time looking at. As much as possible, we try and make that not, I sort of design the clothing before looking very, very closely at that. And then largely we deal with that sort of problem in terms of how it's made and how it can be quick changed and how many people they have backstage helping them change. Because, I think that if you looked at the reality too closely in a show like this where people have to change, every 2 minutes and have 10 seconds to completely change outfits, you'd probably design really, really boring clothing. So, we monitor it really closely, but we try and sort of deal with that technically as opposed to artistically, if that makes sense.
So were you responsible for the terrifying Ghost of Christmas Future? I was petrified. He was so...
yeah, it was with other people responsible for designing that.
He was so monumental. The way he shifted his weight when he was walking, it was so authentic. And he was, honestly, I was really frightened. What was it like putting something like that together?
Well, it's a weird thing. Dean, who's the director, we always talk about how scary we can go. Because it is, like Geordie does, like you guys said, want to do theater that's for all audiences.
Yeah.
So, it's a really fine line trying to hit that point where you're not going to completely scare kids so that they go crying out of the theater and never want to come back again. But we also want to to have it be a sort of emotional experience for all of the audiences. So, yeah, a lot of discussion goes into that. Now, actually, that ghost itself, in terms of special effects or puppetry techniques, is about as simple as, a puppet can get.
Really?
But
it's so big.
You should probably explain what this big puppet looks like. It's not just
how tall
someone
is
with their hand up.
It's just over 12 feet tall, I think.
Wow. Look
and
bigger
it
than
has,
that.
About, no, I think it's about 12 feet tall.
Okay.
In total. So it's just slightly double human size. To give an idea, I think it wears something like 50 meters of black fabric in its,
wow.
in its costume. So it's, really, really, really big.
And this ghost looks like the Grim Reaper. Like, this is not just any ghost. This ghost, was dressed in complete black and, moved, and there was smoke
skeletal
everywhere.
Hands.
Yeah. And didn't speak.
Yeah, and again, the description for this ghost actually, like with with many of the ghosts in designing these three main ghosts in the story, we really went back and looked at, what Dickens wrote about them, and it's really, what was described in the book.
You also did the costume design for another huge Montreal hit, In Piazza San Domenico, which played at the Centaur earlier this season, and everyone was talking about this show. So how do you go from something, I wouldn't say simplistic, but something more, not as costumey, more real life, and then you go to this kind of alternate universe where everyone is a ghost? How do you juggle that?
Well, I guess that's just the nature of the job. I mean, I guess just by using research and inspiration to kind of put ourselves in different moods, we get inspired about different projects and kind of completely enter into different worlds when we're working on shows. So
which one's harder for you?
I wouldn't say that I find any one harder than the other to design. Sometimes the process of bringing that design to life is a little more strenuous, and obviously on a show like this one where there's over 50 costumes is, going to be a little bit more work than a show where there's only 10 costumes. But the work is kind of the same, and the stresses are all the same because, the more costumes, generally the more people we have working on the team to help realize these costumes. One production to another, whether it has 10 costumes or 50 costumes, it doesn't always feel that different, actually.
You worked on the Siegel Center's Cat in a Hot Tin Roof last year, and you said it's important to recognize and reference the past, but to not be afraid to try and take it to a new place and to invite the audience to understand the story in a new light. So how true is that with a classic like A Christmas Carol?
Oh, I think that's really relevant, and I think that's an issue that comes up so often in theater because we're so often doing things that have been done for 50 years or 1,000 years. And I think it's always really, really important, like with something with Christmas Carol, where we always think about, okay, what are the sort of visual traditions that are just cliches and maybe not so relevant anymore, and what are those traditions that are really, really important to recognize because they're the right choices. Scrooge has to look, a certain way because we expect Scrooge to look this way.
And the actor who plays Scrooge has been playing him for quite a while, David Francis, so he's kind of used to it.
Yeah, but I think even as an actor, every time you take on a new production and a new script, the role changes, the direction changes, and the journey that character takes. So, I'm sure that if you spoke to David, he would tell you that every time he creates Scrooge, it's probably like creating a whole new character, just because the production will be different.
Mm-hmm. And actually, there's a performance going on right now.
Oh yeah?
As you don't know?
Well, my job ends at opening, so after it opens, I'm an audience member who gets to go and watch and enjoy.
Right. Well, they actually do have two performances today.
10 and 1, right?
10 and 1. So if you're planning on catching the show, it runs until the 20th of December. So it's a great show to take your family to, or just to go see by yourself. It's really a good show, and it warms your spirits. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us this morning, James.
No, my pleasure.
And what can we look forward to seeing you do coming up?
In the future?
Well, I'm working on a bunch of different projects. I think the next one coming up just in the new year is with Infinity Theatre at the Bain St. Michel, a show called The Daily Miracle, and it's a setting costume design.
Nice.
So that would be the most immediate.
All right, so we'll look out for you then. Thank you so much for joining us.
We wish you all the best.
Cool. Have a good day. And
You
thanks
too.
for the talk.
Thanks.
Bye.